For the next 30 minutes, we're just going to talk a bit about project-based learning. I'm sure you've all heard about project-based learning, or at least projects, correct? And I'm sure you all, especially those teaching young learners, um, have been using projects in our classrooms. However, project-based learning is a little bit different than projects. First of all, projects have been part of the educational process for over 100 years, and for a very, very good reason that we all know. Learners, and especially the young ones, learn much better if they engage themselves, if they get involved in something that will help them understand a topic better. Now, when it comes to project-based learning, there are two major misconceptions that we're going to address during this the session. First misconception is that project-based learning is ideal only for older students, like teenagers. And the second misconception is that all kinds of projects are project-based learning. There is a difference, and we're going to have a look at what distinguishes a project and project-based learning together in the next few minutes. Now, before we go into the details of PBL, I want us to consider the following. What makes a good learning task? Here I have like four factors, four descriptions, let's say, and I would like you to rate each description from 1 to 5. 1 being not important and 5 being very important. So let's start. A good learning task should enable learners to manipulate and practice specific features of language. Is that important? Maybe, no. 1 to 5. 1 if you think it's not important, 5 if you think it's very important. You can use the chat box. I'm sure you're all familiar. 5, 5, 5, 4. Okay, we got a 1. Now, think about why we teach. Why do we teach English? Why do we teach learners and, children in general, any kind of language? Because we want them to communicate, because we want them to use the language. And when we use the language in everyday situations, in our everyday lives, what do we actually do? Do we recall grammar structures? Do we recall grammar functions? Do we just recall vocabulary? No. All these are language units that we know and then we have stored in our brains. And what we do in real life is take all those little bits and manipulate them to create messages on the spot, depending on the needs of the situation. So, a speaker of a language, whether this is L1 or L2 or L3, cannot be considered fluent if they are not able to manipulate all these different pieces to create a message. Factor 2, allow learners to rehearse in class communicative skills they will need in the real world. Do you think this is important? 1, 2, 5. Mostly 5s. Yes, because again, our classrooms are like mini laboratories where we need to create a safe space for the students to practice the language. We need them to use real English. So they will be able to use the language when they leave our classroom. So it is important for them to not just practice language, but rehearse real life situations in the classroom. Thirdly, a good task, a good learning task, should involve learners in sharing information. Yes, maybe, no. I see mostly 5s, a 3. Think about what language is. Said it again, we use language to communicate. And why do we communicate with other people? Why do we use language? To convey messages, to pass. Exactly. To share information or construct meaning. These are the two main functions of using a language. We either share information or we co-construct with our interlocutors new meaning. So if we want to say that our learning process, our teaching helps our students prepare for real life. The tasks we use in the classroom should help learners both use their communicative skills, develop their communicative skills, but also involve them in tasks where learners will share information. When we say share information, not just personal information, information, knowledge, ideas, it's all, it all goes under the same umbrella. And now, fourth factor, a good learning task should be suitable for mixed ability groups. Five, we need to be inclusive. Exactly. Now, I don't know what kind of classes, if you teach small classes, private tutoring, or you teach in regular schools where you have 20 or 30 students in a classroom. But we all know that even if you have like 8 or 10 students, none of them are the same. They all have their own strengths, their own points they need to develop, and they need to work on best. So we need to use tasks. We need to introduce tasks that are adaptable and that can be easily done by different levels of students. And this is a struggle we all face on different levels, but we do face them in every classroom. So I would give a 5 to all those four factors. If you ask me, 4.5 to 5 to all this. And when it comes to PBL, what has made PBL very popular and what makes the use of project-based learning very effective in any kind of classroom is that it incorporates all those four elements. Project-based learning is not just a simple project. Now, there are many definitions of PBL. I have chosen two mainly because they include a few features that I would like us to discuss. Now, when it comes to project-based learning, it means that students, they learn by actively engaging in real world and personally meaningful projects. It's not about, PBL is not about us teaching and students just practicing. Students get a hands-on learning experience, excuse me, in projects, in tasks that are related to the real world, but also have a personal meaning to them. And when something is personally meaningful, it automatically becomes even more engaging. Furthermore, when it comes to PBL, it's not just about reading and memorizing. It's a whole process that includes many different processes and the development of many different soft skills as we know them. So students will set out into a research through PBL, during which they will need to carry out the project, design, plan, evaluate, and at the end, when they conclude with their final output, they will have to publicly exhibit that product. Now, that product could be written, it could be an oral presentation, it could be a video, it could be a variety of things, as long as it is something that students can publicly exhibit as the result of their project. Now, key features of project-based learning. When we start a PBL project, we need to set, first and foremost, a challenging problem, a question that will intrigue the students and that will set them out to an inquiry, to a quest, to a research, you can call it as you like. Now, that research, that problem, it needs to have a reflection in real life. It needs to be an authentic, it needs to be authentic. During the research process, during the project process, students need to have voice and choice. And you will understand better what I mean when we get into an example I have prepared for you. So PBL is in its core student-centered, and it's directed by the students' choices as they carry out the project. A very important feature of PBL also is reflection, self-reflection, self-evaluation, and peer evaluation. And this should happen during the whole process, from the moment they start the project to the moment they produce their final public product. In PBL, Students don't just deliver a project that they give it to us and we assign it, and we mark it, and we give it back. Students will need to present in real audience what are the findings of their research, of their inquiry. Now, um, there are many different tasks and many different types of input you can use to help students prepare for PBL and help them develop all the necessary skills they need. We're not going to go very in detail through them. I'm sure you know them, like blended reading and writing genres, use authentic input material, multiple and multimodal methods of communication, real world scenario, and of course, if you could bring real world expertise into the classroom, that's even better. Like professionals that could speak to the children, or interviews with real world people, that could make the project even more engaging and motivating for the learners. Now, we said that one of the major misconceptions is that PBL is actually simple projects. However, there are many fundamental differences between simple traditional projects, which of course we also need as a step of practicing language and developing basic linguistic skills, and PBL. When it comes to projects, they can be either individual or, collaborative. So students can do a project either on their own or as a group. When it comes to PBL, the project should always be collaborative. It is important for students to do what? To share information, to communicate, evaluate ideas and information together, reach decisions, and create something as a group. Projects are usually always teacher directed. So we will finish a module on food, on history, and we will assign a project to the students on the basic topic. And the topic will be assigned by us. In PBL, students direct the whole process. We don't set the rubric of the project, we set a question that will set them out in the inquiry, where students will lead themselves. It's up to them. And their choices is what will decide what the actual outcome will be. Now, projects usually happen after learning. Think about the traditional module. We teach vocabulary, grammar, reading, writing, and at the end, usually there is an assigned project where students, use everything they've learned in the module into something fun. In PBL, learning happens during the process. Remember the first definition of PBL? It is a process where students will need to carry out an extended project. PBL doesn't happen over the weekend. It takes time. We can assign a project as weekend homework. We cannot assign a PBL task as a weekend homework. So it could last weeks, it could last 2 months. It depends on the age of the students, the topic we have assigned, the output we are expecting from the students, etc., etc. But either way, learning happens during that process while students conduct their research. This is where we help them learn the vocabulary, the language they need in general to carry out the project. Projects can be realistic, but it can also have no real world relevance, especially with young ones where we use imaginary situations to make it more fun with them. We very frequently use topics that are, fantastic, or they have no relevance to the real world. When it comes to PBL, all projects should have a realistic application and they should be connected to real life. Finally, when it comes to the product, the student's final output in projects, the product is submitted to us, we mark it with whatever scheme we use, and that's it. When it comes to PBL, the product of the students should be publicly presented. Now, that could be a presentation in the classroom, that could be a presentation in front of the whole school, that could be a presentation, an event. It depends on the topic. In a nutshell, when it comes to projects, it's all about the product, the final output. When it comes to PBL, the whole essence, the whole meaning is in the process. There's no right or wrong output. What is important is to get students working, exposing themselves to different input, and developing all those soft skills, even from a very young age, to come up with their final output. Now, I'm a very practical person, so I would like to show this to show you the difference with examples. So here we have two rubrics, two tasks. The first one says, find information about an unusual shopping center around the world, present it to the class. Is that a project or is it project-based learning? What do you think? It is a sorry, project. Correct. Why is it a project? What are the elements that may be missing that make it a project? It's just a question. What will students do when we assign this rubric? It is an open question, but so will it be when it comes um, to PBL. The point here is that we ask students to just present an unusual shopping center. So what will they do? They will just go on Google or on ChatGPT now, and they will get the information, put them on a nice project paper, and just present them. So what they're actually doing, they're just reconveying information, ready-made information they found online or in a magazine or whatever source they use. Have a look at the second rubric. Imagine you've got a shop. In groups, decide what kind of shop you've got, prepare some special offer for your products, present them to the class. Is that a project or project-based learning? It's PBL. Why? First of all, it's collaborative. You have a group. Secondly, you have real world relevance. I'm a shop owner and I need to prepare special offers. So this is a realistic scenario. Okay, excellent, Mario. Students have a choice. First, imagine you've got a shop. What kind of shop? Okay, I've got a bookshop set, no student ever. But let's imagine. So first choice students need to make is what kind of shop they have. Then prepare some special offers. What will students do then? Go online, see different offers that have to do with a specific shop. So depending on their first choice, they will go into different paths of research to find the second step they need, which is research for what kind of offers we need for these kind of shops. Then decide what kind of offers they want and design the advertisements for the offers. So you see that this is a process. I don't just look it up online, I get the answer to present. We need to make decisions on the way, and students need to make decisions among them. So they need to collaborate, communicate, evaluate. I think that I chose this two rubrics because I think it's very easy to understand the difference. Okay. Uh, and if I can put it very simply, if it's Googleable, it's a project. If it's not Googleable, it's PBL, if you think about it. Let's have a look at a second example. The first activity here says find or draw pictures of hats made of leather, plastic, rubber, in groups, make a poster, present it to the class. Is that project or project-based learning? What do you think? Let's see. Remember, first of all, it needs to be, PBL needs to be group work. It is group, right? Correct. Is it a realistic scenario? Okay, I need to draw pictures of hats. Why? For what reason? Yes, I'm making hats, but where's the real world relevance? What for? Remember that why young children always ask? It is very important. They don't ask why because they have nothing else to ask. In order for any, for all, that applies even to us. Um, in order for our brains to learn something, it needs to be meaningful to us. We need to have a reason to learn something. So that why is very important. Why do I need to make hats? So there's no realistic scenario here. Yes, it's group work. Yes, they will have a public output, but it's not student directed. Very good, Misa. The teacher, we just instructed it. Okay. So the scenario here is not PBL, it's a simple project. Have a look at the second activity. It is summer. Your class is going hiking in the mountains. Design a hat for yourself and then present the hat to the class. Is that a project or PBL? Joanna says a project. What's missing, Joanna, that makes that a project? This says PBL. The group work is missing. Excellent. So generally speaking, this activity covers everything project-based learning activities should include. We have a realistic scenario. It is summer and we're going camping and I need a hat. So there's a reason why I should design that hat. Okay. Students direct the whole process. How? Okay, it is summer. It is summer where? It's summer in Greece. It's summer in the UK. It's summer in Argentina. And we're going hiking in the mountain. Which mountain? So what are the weather conditions? So students will need to decide, first of all, which mountain we're going hiking to. What are the weather conditions for summer on that mountain? What are the best material for this specific weather conditions? Okay, and then design the hat. And of course, then they publicly present their product. Now, the only thing missing here is the group work, but you can easily assign it as a group work and it becomes PBL from a simple individual project. So you can, I think you can understand now more or less that difference. But again, here you see the main difference. The first one, which is clearly purely a project, it's something Googleable. Students can just Google plastic hats, leather hats, rubber hats, print out the pictures and create the poster. While in the second activity, students will need to do research and make decisions before they come to the final outcome. So they get really involved and really engaged in the process. Now, so if this is something very learners, I'm going to go very quickly because we're running out of time. What are we to do as teachers? Whether to coach and engage students, and these are the main steps when we assign a project-based learning activity. We start by building the culture always, and I will explain what that is, and we finish with evaluation. In the process, you have 4 more steps that happen at the same time or that happen interchangeably. This is design and plan, engage and coach students, scaffold learning, and of course, manage activities. Now, here I have an example for you of a PBL activity that we have designed for our classes. So we ask students to organize a recycling day event in the school. So this is where they will have the final outcome. Now, before we assign the whole project, the whole event, what we first thing to do is build the culture, and that is tune students in. Why is recycling important? What is recycling? What can we recycle? Are there recycling bins in our school, in our neighborhood, in our houses? And, tune them in a bit about the topic. Then we design and plan. In this project, we have divided students in 4 categories. I don't know if you saw earlier, we have the advertisers, the collectors, the informers, and the documentary team. Why? Because we want to increase the engagement of the students. So this is an event. There are many responsibilities. So we will chunk the responsibilities down and the workload, and we will do so based on the students' skills and interests. We want them to be motivated, not to demotivate them. So depending on what they like doing best, they were divided into the relevant groups. So Group A, for example, who were the advertisers, were responsible for creating the promotional campaign for the event. So they had to create a poster. They might decide not to go for a poster, to go for digital advertising. It's fine. Again, choice. So students will need to gather all the material they need, start designing the poster, divide responsibilities among them, etc., etc. Another group was the documentary team. That team was responsible for recording the event, interviewing people at the event, and at the end, preparing a video, excuse me, presenting the event, etc., etc. So every team, we have this big event, and then the small groups were responsible for certain parts of the event. They will have to meet regularly, and us as teachers, what we need to do is help them manage the activities, have regular follow-up sessions, see that everyone was preparing, see that everyone was on time, if they needed anything. So, for example, students might not have had a good video camera, and we might have had to, talk to the director and get the school camera to use during the event. So we were just there to make sure that they kept on going with the project, and we just helped them with whatever they needed. At the same time, remember we said that learning happens during the process. While they were preparing, um, we provided scaffolded learning. So it was a recycle event. We talked about going green at school, recycling, giving them language they would need to do the presentation, etc., etc. And after the event, which was attended by the local community and, of course, parents, etc., etc., we reached the evaluation process. Here we watch the video. First of all, we asked students how they felt about the event, get their own ideas and their own feedback, and then watch the video again, second eye, second review, and discuss as a group what they thought went well, what they thought we could have made different, etc., etc. So a very relaxed self-evaluation in teaching way to develop soft skills. It's also very personalized and very meaningful for the students. They get charge of their learning, which means they don't just gain better understanding of the language, but also realistic topics and realistic knowledge. Who is project-based learning aimed at? If you ask me, everyone. It doesn't matter the age. Of course, the older students are, the more independent they are, and the more wow projects they could accomplish. But even with young learners, if the rubrics and the projects are adjusted accordingly, like the one I just showed you, that was a project for fifth graders, it could work miracles. Yes, they develop soft skills from a very young age. It will help them with better retention of the knowledge, but it also helps them develop a sense of self-discipline and responsibility. And the young ones, you know how they are. The more responsibility you give them, the more proud they feel of themselves, the more serious they get. And we also give them the chance to use their imagination and get their curiosity in action in in a meaningful context. So to conclude, project-based learning can be implemented in any kind of level, even primary levels. It can make use of authentic content, irrespective of the age of the learners. We just have to be careful with the topics we use, if they are young, so they can connect to the topic. And it doesn't also only help our young learners practice and develop language, but also skills they will need for their life, outside our classroom. And I think this is it. I just took 2 more minutes, Michelle. I hope that is okay. Um, I don't know if there are any questions. The
Thank you.
examples,
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yes,
somebody asked, where are the examples from? Are they from a book?
they're from
Um,
the I Wonder book published by Express Publishing.
okay, I've posted a link to the website, not to the actual book, because I wasn't sure which one it was, but I'm sure you can find it there if you're interested.
Thank you.
Um, thank you, Fanny. That was very interesting. We do have a couple of, well, 1 minute. There was a question. Let me find it. And by Katrine, who asks, what would you say is the difference between TBL, task-based learning, and PBL? And when does a task turn into a project-based activity?
Oh, that's a very common confusion, and there are many overlaps. I have to agree. I think that the main difference is first of all the extent of the project. Like when it comes to project-based learning, it could also be something that would last for a whole semester and it will involve multiple students. For example, one of these events that are being organized could be a multi-level event project across classrooms and across different levels. I remember once I we organized a project at the school I was working that lasted the preparation lasted for about 4 months and included four different grades that had to come together. So we had divided the responsibilities depending on the age and the English level of the students. And so it sounds a bit complicated, but actually it was really, really fun for everyone. And it was nice to see different graders. With task-based learning, it's not possible to do that. It shares the student-centered approach. It shares the real life relevance approach with PBL. But the extent of the people involved and the extent of the process, I think is what makes the biggest difference. I hope that answered the question.
It did. It did. I think it did.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
I really enjoyed it. I mean, for those people who know me, I'm sure it's no surprise that I'm a big fan of project-based learning and inquiry-based learning, which is kind of what I do. But for many years, I wasn't really aware of what PBL actually involved. And I think a lot of teachers feel like that. And I think in this session, you've shared some practical examples, and that I think will help anybody who was unfamiliar with project-based learning. And I'm sure
Some
now they do understand it a little bit more. And that it's not so hard to implement if you've got the right support, which I'm sure they have if they use, for example, the course that you've shown the examples from.
no, no, it's not. I mean, it could be easily implemented along our regular curriculum because it's mostly students doing the work rather than us doing something in the classroom.
Exactly. And that's always a plus when we don't have
Yeah,
to do all of the work.
true, that's true.
Okay, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Fanny.